What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, in this episode, we start to bring our free agency detailings and previews home a little bit.
Mhm.
In this episode, we're going to dive into free agent safeties and wide receivers that could be of use to the use. Oh, I got to flub. We're just past a minute. I flubbed the word already. So upset at myself. Some free agent wide receivers and safeties that could be of use to the Buffalo Bills in 2026 and beyond, as always, based on some financial stuff, skill set, traits, play style, fit, all of those types of things. We will be diving into that in this episode. Then next week, we will have our comprehensive top 10 lists. And then the week after that, hopefully, we'll have some official news and we'll be able to break down the official tape of or the tape of some official signings and guys
Yeah.
that are rumored to be. But Eric, before we dive into all that, as we do here, how you doing? How you feeling? How's it going?
I mean, it's combine week, right? As we, are going to evaluate safeties and wide receivers, for free agency and kind of wrap up free agency when it comes to position by position breakdowns. The combine started this week. And so, obviously that's, more of the draft side of things. We're going to get into that eventually. But I did, find it interesting what Brandon Beane and Joe Brady discussed at the combine with their pressers. It seemed very organized when it came to like, okay, they get 15 minutes or, their appearances were very like hard outs. Right. And, I thought some of the things they discussed were very interesting, especially when it comes to like the evaluation, the transition from the 4-3 to a 3-4 odd front look, Jim Leonhard and his defense, how he's going to implement it. And just that transition, something that we've been infatuated with, obviously, since the hiring. But the meetings that they've had together to kind of go over what Jim Leonhard's looking for at each position. I just wish I was a fly on the wall when those conversations were happening so that it would make not only free agency easier, but the draft. And as once we finish up the evaluation side of things for free agency, we immediately pivot to the draft and those guys. And so I wish I could just be a fly on the wall when those conversations were happening, just because it would make our job that much easier.
Oh, 1,000%. From a selfish perspective, I would love to just be like, so what position groups do I not have to worry about? Like what skill sets are we not looking for? What are we looking for? That'd be great. Yeah, I thought there were some interesting nuggets in the presser from Beane and Brady, particularly with even, Beane mentioned, some of the harder kinds. I forget what the initial question was, but it was something along the lines of, oh, if in reference to Jim Leonhard, but you get somebody new that comes in, it's like, how do you look at kind of the roster and who's going to work out, who's going to fit, because everything has been the scheme fit. And he talked about, you get in, new coaches and how they're brought in, how they see players versus how you see players, and whether or not, a new coach or scheme will get the proper value out of a guy. And he gave the exact example of saying, a guy might come in and say, for the money you're paying him, quote, for the money you're paying him, I don't know if I'll get the use out of him. And so those are some of the tough conversations you have to have. Those are the hard conversations that we've started having and that we'll continue to have. And that made me kind of perk up a little bit because I was like, oh, I wonder who defensively they've had that conversation about. It would be somebody that you would think would make a little bit more money and some like double digit money. The example Beane gave was like $10 million a year is a made up example. But yeah, I thought that was a kind of an interesting little nugget. And then Beane and Brady both echoing the whole, like, just get good football players, just get good football players. And Beane using that to kind of tie in Jim Leonhard's refreshing approach this year and not having to pass up certain guys in free agency or the draft because of scheme fit and kind of tying it into like, you may have somebody ranked higher and is a better football player, but the guy significantly lower than him is a better scheme fit. And so you pass over the higher guy. And I thought that was interesting, given all the changes in the shakeup recently and how much of it, like, oh, is that what was happening with McDermott? Is that some of the dynamic? What's going on? Who are they discussing on the defensive roster that maybe Jim Leonhard thinks for the money that Beane is paying somebody, he won't get the most use out of him. I thought some of those nuggets were interesting, spread out amongst, like you said, everything was very, if you watch like 5 different interviews, they essentially said the same thing in like everyone.
Yeah. And I think a lot of fans heard those conversations or those statements from Beane and, Brady talking about the multiple defenses, who could where. And they immediately think, because the Bills are switching to an odd front, a 3-4 type front, that, hey, it just opens up the evaluation process. And now you have a larger population of players you can pick from. That's not necessarily true. So there may be guys that in the past that they didn't look at as edge guys that now they can. At the same time, that that change on the outside. But if you look to the inside, DN and D tackle, now you're looking for guys that do things completely different than prior years. So that whittles that population down. So I think it's one of those things that I know a lot of analysts, especially guys that cover the Bills, immediately think, oh, the pool of players was just opened up. That's not true. Because now you have guys, one, on the roster that have only one gap. And now you may ask them to do 2 gap. Can they do it? Now you have guys in the draft that you're looking at certain positions that typically you look for those 1 gappers. But now you're looking for guys that can read, stack, and shed, right? And so there are different skill sets, different traits, different body types, different archetypes, right? And so I think I want fans to kind of pump the brakes on that narrative, and that, oh, now there's 275 players out of the entire draft that they can look from. And that's not true. They're just looking at different skill sets. So while it opens up maybe a sample at edge, it may whittle down a sample at D tackle, at zero tech, at DN in an odd front, because they're being asked to do different things.
Yeah, I think even like the linebacker conversation we had last week is a really good example of that, right? Like it opens the door for a Caden Ellis or Leo Chenal because of what they can do and like your base looks, but also the sub package looks, but it also narrows you down from someone like a Matt Milano, who wouldn't be like an ideal fit and kind of now. So yeah, it opens up a couple doors and then it closes a couple doors just based on what they need. And for us, it's really exciting because those couple doors that they've opened, we haven't looked in those doors in a very long time.
Not even a peek. Not even a peek. No, I'll say Von Miller was probably the peak. That was probably about it, right?
That was the closest peak.
And it got closed pretty quickly.
Yes. And it got shut right away.
Yeah.
And we never looked it up. It probably maybe got boarded up a little bit. There's dust on it. The doorknob is creaky and rusty. But yeah, I think that's a fair point. And man, it's going to be talked about so much throughout the entirety of the offseason, especially once we start to get more breadcrumbs of who they sign, who they draft. But, and I get it, but I really do. There's so many misconceptions about the scheme change and kind of what's going on and what we will see, what we won't see. And again, I get it, because I think people hear 3-4 and the thought is like, I don't know, like the Bill Cowher Steelers 3-4. So it's like, oh my God, like that's what's going to happen. And it's like, no, that's not.
And like, that's going to be their primary defense.
Correct.
There's still going to be a nickel defense.
Yeah.
And they're going to play. I mean, even last year, the Bills were in base, the most they've ever been in base. And that was up over 20%. Now, if you look at the Broncos, again, this is not Jim Leonhard defense. He was a part of that staff, but even them, they were 5% higher when it comes to being in their base defense, the 3-4 versus the Bills 4-3, 5% higher. It's not a big difference. And so I think people immediately start to think of like, okay, where does Taron Johnson play? Well, he plays right now. He's still going to be the nickel. He's still going to be on the field for 60% of those, reps as of right now. And so, yeah, I just think people are starting to confuse and conflate that the switch to the odd front, to the 5-man spacing, is going to be, their base defense. It'll be the base defense, but not the primary defense for the Bills and for most teams across the league.
Yeah, 1,000%. And even tying into that, like we've talked so much about Jim Leonhard and his flexibility and setting guys up for success. Maybe he uses more of that odd front look if he has the bodies or the horses for it. But if, say, for whatever reason, free agency doesn't work out the way they want, or certain guys become available in the draft or free agency that align certain ways, they might end up playing nickel more than he thought they would coming into this year. They might play it less. It's going to be tied into what body types they can get, the players they can get. And again, the whole nature of the hybridization of the players, the front structure, the flexibility, the multiplicity, that means he can lean into whatever he needs to as he needs to do that. And yes, there is that tight front, odd front base, but you're still going to see a good chunk of nickel. And again, even within that, like we've talked about, he's going to lean into whatever he needs to based on the body types and the players that they have. If they're not built to be a regular odd front team and play with like 4 linebackers on the field and or like, oh, these sub packages, if they don't have a Leo Chenal and an Andrew Van Ginkel, they're not going to play guys like that off the edge in a 4-down structure. It's still going to be Groot and Landon Jackson or whoever held the other edges. Like you'll see those looks. It's going to be whatever they can get and put together.
Yeah, especially we're talking year one, like that transition year. I think it's going to be huge. You're going to see a little bit of both. You will see multiple. You'll see that hybrid type look, and because again, they don't have the entire front 7, especially the front 7, to run a straight out front. I think everyone knows that, which is why when we were looking at nose tackles, we were looking at pure nose tackles, zero techs. Tonight is an interesting discussion too. When we're talking safety, let's transition to that. Typically, the Bills are a too high structure team. Well, a lot of the guys that we're talking about tonight have some roots in single high post safety structure type defenses, or at least showed those skill sets that they could man the post as a single high safety, to have the range, to have the angles, the processing to play that position, starting off with a guy that was really good coming out of college and Bryan Cook. And I know a guy that you really liked for the Chiefs. Some of these clips from his post high safety looks were really, really nice plays from him.
Yeah, he was somebody who, he kind of essentially came in. If we had like a top 3, he came in tied for my 3rd spot, along with another safety that we'll get into later that made it into your top 3. And yeah, I remember Cook coming out of Cincinnati, and he's flashed a bunch. They've had some cool safety like rooms in Kansas City with him and Justin Reed and Connor. Yeah, and they do so many cool things in Spags' defense. And it started there with for me, right? Like him playing in Spags' defense, that he's going to understand complex coverages and disguises and match looks and understanding rules-based coverages that we anticipate getting more from with Jim Leonhard, and then doing it from two high structures, single high structures, whether it's, a traditional one, it's cover 2, cover 4, so cover 6 or 8 stuff. If he's in the post as the single high, if he's in the box as more of the down safety, and kind of wherever he is, not overly athletic, not super twitched up. He's just a smart, responsible, physical football player. I think good eyes and good processing. He reads route distributions accurately and efficiently in real time in both his zone responsibilities and match coverages. He has a trigger, and a good trigger, but it isn't necessarily explosive. Again, he's not explosive in his movements. He wins more with positioning and angles and kind of reading what's happening in front of him. And while he doesn't have great, or even maybe a pretty good long speed, he does have some range, especially from the post, due to his processing, his angles, and his athleticism. You've even seen, folks in a couple of these clips, like him carrying guys vertical. Granted, he's deeper to start in the second clip against the Giants, but he's running vertical with Malik Neighbors, who can fly. And I also really like that he's a sound and physical tackler in space and in the alley. He has an 8.2 career missed tackle rate, but it's improved year over year since he's been in the league. And this past year in 2025 was his career best. He only had a miss rate of 5.6%, which I thought was awesome.
I mean, some of these plays, whether it's filling the alley, whether it's coming in as a secondary run fitter from a post safety position, which is very important when you're talking post safety positions. But while he's maybe not a top tier athlete, he's smooth. He glides. He has very good leverage of the ball. But his eyes, man, his eyes are special. We're talking processing. We're talking route combinations. Look how Josh is trying to look him off here. He's looking him off this way. And so you see Cook kind of peeking over here. And then once he realizes that Josh was just doing that to move him, he gets his eyes to the backside. And here comes Shakir on the backside here. And watch this break by Cook on this play from that post safety position to make a play on the ball on Shakir. You see that time and time again. Here's more of like a two-man route, a high-low combo. They want him to drive down here so they can hit this route and clear this out. But boom, he sticks right at the sticks, literally, and then comes downhill as they throw it underneath because, again, he took away the high to low. Very good spacing here. And then, comes down and makes that tackle. Like, there's so many of these clips where he's reading multiple guys and, sometimes not even on the same side of the field. and making plays on the ball on the other side of the field. Here's that interception or a pass breakup you were talking about earlier. But his eyes in processing route combinations, anticipating routes is very, very good. It's almost cornerback like.
Yeah, very fair. And I think again we're trying to take somebody who can pair with Cole Bishop, right? And Cole Bishop, I think he showed significant improvement as a deeper coverage safety this year. Single high looks, 2 high looks. For me, I selfishly still want more Utah Cole Bishop. Give me him in and around the box and line of scrimmage. I want not literally big nickel, but like apex, big nickel, monster man, Cole Bishop. Let him sit in the box. And I think Cook gives you the opportunity of somebody who can play deeper in 2 high looks, can play single high post safety, can play down in the box. This is one of the examples you're talking about earlier.
Same type of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Reading something from the other side of the field. They're in this Tampa 2 kind of look, and Cook has his eyes on the man to his side, and then he opens up, sees the quarterback set and transfer, gets his eyes on the route that's coming from the other side of the field. And look how calm and poised he is. He tracks the ball. He follows it in the air. Like he is right on time and on line with where that ball ends up. Then he goes up, high points it, picks it off. He could have some higher ball production, but I think it's more tied to the defense and the roles that he had. Because again, like you said, he's got good eyes, good spacing, good awareness all over the field.
Yeah, and he trusts his eyes. That's the big thing, right? He trusts what he sees. Is he always going to be right? No, but he does a great job of trusting his eyes and just going to make plays on the ball. So where does he fall as far as salary structure per year? Is this something you believe that the Bills would invest in a safety position given their salary cap constraints?
Yeah, I think he's somebody who, I don't think he's going to break the bank. He's coming off that rookie deal with Kansas City. So this will be like his first essentially free agency contract to kind of see what he can be and what he'll end up getting on the open market. But I see him somewhere around like maybe a 15 million, I think would be like the absolute ceiling in terms of average annual value. But he's somebody who I could see getting maybe like 11 to 13, maybe $14 million a year, but somewhere in between. I think the athletic profile will limit him for some teams, but the headiness, the match coverage nature, the complexity coming from Spags defense, that pedigree and that resume and how good of a processor he is, I think makes him a reliable, long-term starter for several years potentially in this defense and somebody who wouldn't break the bank.
I love it, man. Love it. He's a talented guy. Going all the way back to his Cincinnati days. Another guy that we both, watched some film on, and I'm sure a lot of fans are familiar with, is safety Reed Blankenship from the Eagles. 53 total tackles just from cover 1 and cover 3 when he wasn't in the box last year. That was the 3rd most for safeties, only 4 missed tackles. Now, he's more of a lower range when we're talking AAV per year. PFF has him at 7 mil a year. Spot Track has 7 mil. So I think that's a nice sweet spot for the Bills because I want them to get a guy that, can help that transition in year 1, but also a guy that can teach the next guy, because I'm hoping they draft a guy in, late day 2, early day 3, to do some things at that safety position. And so my, one-liner for him, 26-year-old Super Bowl champ and captain of the Eagles last year and captain in college for his team, who serves as a safety net of the secondary, wins with elite open field angles, disciplined alley filling, and a high IQ. It's kind of where he hangs his hat. He's seen a lot. He's played in a very complex coverage defense under Fangio the last couple of years. And that allows him to erase crossing routes, as you'll see here in a few minutes, and provide reliability in a multitude of coverages. So erasing crossing routes, one thing that Fangio and the Eagles have done for years is kind of poach the backside of routes. Here's just a crossing route on 3-level passing concept. You see him process, run the pass, then get his eyes on that crosser and choke that route and take that away along the boundary. He does this a bunch. Here's another one that is coming from the top of the screen. Look at him get his eyes across the middle and then just take that away. So much so that dude did not want a piece of that. He didn't even want to catch it because he knew he's probably going to get lit up. He does this time and time again. Here is an end zone angle on an interception against Dallas where he takes away that crosser. And this isn't just anyone. This is CeeDee Lamb. You see him take that ball away. He's so good at processing those crossing routes and then using the angles, not the athleticism necessary, the angles to get there to take them away. Yeah,
your one-liner hit my major points for him as well. My Like essentially I tried to give like 3 words or a quick little summation, and I wrote good angles, smart football player, well versed in a complex defense. And you know what you're getting with somebody who excelled in a Fangio defense, and he did. He was really, I think he got a lot of love from Eagles fans, and I think he gets a lot of recognition because he's a white DB, and there's not a lot of those
True.
in the
And they have a
NFL.
couple of good ones on that
They
squad.
do. Yeah, it's pretty nuts that they had 2 of them there for sure with him and
Yeah.
DeJean. But I think is kind of like a unsung hero of that defense the past couple of years. Like there's been so many names in the front and even on the outside at corner, and they get Quinyon Mitchell and they had Slay and it's Carter and Jordan Davis and Zach Bond and all these names and horses they've had up front. He really stabilized the back end when he first came into the lineup. And again, smart football player, with Fangio's system, disguising coverages, you know what you're going to get from a safety. He's getting some deep looks. He has to fit the alley from 2 high structures and single high. You have to see him being a secondary fitter like you have labeled here.
Yeah.
Watch him just track this thing down, get into the alley and make the play. He's going to play with good technique, good fundamentals. He's got to understand the game because they're going to play those rules-based coverages like we anticipate Jim Leonhard playing to a degree as well. I think this type of move makes a lot of sense as somebody who, again, stabilizes that position, can kind of quarterback everything from the back end, help Cole Bishop be unleashed a little bit, and give Jim Leonhard kind of like another version of Jim Leonhard on the field, not just because it's a white safety, but somebody who's like heady, somebody who understands the game back there, the complexities, can dictate from the top down. He's a guy who you regularly see communicating, talking, chirping out there in a good way, relaying. I think he's somebody who makes a lot of sense for the Bills. And again, isn't somebody who's going to break the bank, which helps them tremendously as well to get a stabilizing piece at what his anticipated cost is.
Yeah. And some of these run plays that you just referenced, the leverage and the processing, but again, the multiple defensive fronts. And when you have multiple defensive fronts, you're putting more guys on the line of scrimmage. As soon as a running back gets through that first level, the safeties, the linebackers become that much more important in run fitting, whether it's as a primary run fitter or secondary.
And real quick, we saw that cost the Bills a little bit in their single high coverage. Remember, like the Atlanta game, they're getting gashed in those single high looks because the running back was getting through the first level and there was nobody to stop him right after.
Yeah, and so look at, obviously, Ben Johnson and the Bears testing this Eagles defense. You see them moving that tight end across, and it looks like Blankenship is going to be carrying him in man coverage. It ends up being a run, but watch how he plays off of the guys up front. This guy's boxing this play in, and so look at him play off of him, and as soon as that running back cuts it back, boom, he goes and makes a tackle. Being able to make these tackles and process these fits with, again, multiple defensive fronts, right? Here's more of a 4-man. You got Cooper DeJean right here off the ball, but different front. And now he's to the weak side. Now he has to fall in as a weak side defender. And once again, look at the angle and how he's playing off. Okay, this guy's boxing him in. There's a cutback lane. Who's going to fill it? Blankenship is from depth. He's there to bring the running back down with his teammate. These are the type of things you see on film from 2 high safety structures, from single high safety structures. And he can do it. And he comes down. I said he comes down gracefully. He does a really good job of coming down smoothly, kind of like Brian Cook, but then going ahead and playing square. Look at him stick Jacobs right there in the hole there. Just a really solid player. And I think he projects as a high-end stabilizing starter for a team transitioning to an aggressive blitz-heavy scheme like Buffalo's under Jim Leonhard. He'd serve as a post safety or deep half eraser who allows Cole Bishop to roam and attack closer to the line of scrimmage, like you talked about earlier. And he's a value target more so. I don't think he's going to make as much money as maybe, Brian Cook or even Coby Bryant, who we're going to talk about. But I think he's got that Super Bowl experience. He's obviously a leader, and he's played in some big games. And that's the kind of guy I want to pair, like you said, kind of like Jim Leonhard, pair next to Cole Bishop to open up Bishop's, versatility and ability to just play fast. Because I think under Jim Leonhard, I think Cole Bishop can be a weapon. And so when you want to weaponize Cole Bishop, I need a guy that is steady and is able to do everything very good. Maybe not anything elite or great, but everything very good, and he's reliable.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Being that stabilizing factor. That's part of the reason why I liked Cook. It's kind of my lower end guy, but there's even better value for Blankenship because I don't think he's going to cost as much as Cook, like you mentioned. And and I know it's probably not sexy for folks or not a fun way to like talk about it, but they've got holes on defense that they need to plug and they need to add guys. They need to get, like the verbiage you used last week, they need some bang for your buck kind of guys.
Yeah.
They need those value, and it might happen at nose, it might happen at edge, it might be a 4-eye, it might be at safety, it might be linebacker. Like somewhere they need multiple bang for your buck value guys. I think Blankenship is a great microcosm or representation of that at the safety spot. And that does, again, that's not to say like, oh, because he's underwhelming and he's bad. But just, I think the pairing of him with Bishop makes a lot of sense. And him coming from Fangio's defense, then going to Leonhard and kind of knowing what he could be and what kind of essentially what he could unlock Bishop to be in the rest of the defense. And the blitz thing is really a good point by you as well. We anticipate a lot more movement from this defense.
Yes.
If you are moving and you're not coordinated when doing it, things get real messy real quick. And so you need somebody on the back end who can kind of regulate, keep everything controlled, and keep things nice and smooth and nice and seamless.
Yeah, he's again, he's not a flashy guy. He's not a big name, but I do think that he offers a lot when it comes to pairing him with Cole Bishop on top of the bang for your buck factor. Now, a guy that really came on this year for the Seattle Seahawks, Coby Bryant, man. Talk about him and where he's going to excel if he's injected into that Bills defense.
Yeah, he's somebody who it's funny, I didn't realize this until right now, but I'm leading off with 2 Cincinnati DBs, Brian Cook and then now Coby Bryant.
Coby played corner at Cincinnati.
Yes, he absolutely did play. He was the corner opposite of Sauce Gardner. At Cincinnati, and it was like, oh, Coby Bryant's pretty good too. But Sauce got all the attention, and he played mainly he was the nickel his first year in Seattle, and then these past couple of seasons has transitioned more into safety. They've had some injuries on the back end. He stabilized some things for them, but yeah, he was primarily a slot as a rookie in 2022, and then started to become more of a safety. Got banged up a little bit in 2023, and these past 2 years has been a full-time safety for them. But he's just a lot of juice, a lot of explosiveness. My 3 kind of word highlight for him is intensity, violence, and tenacity. He's got a quick trigger, but he's explosive, and he can cover a lot of ground in an instant, from single high looks, 2 high looks. He's able to make plays on the ball. This interception here against Arizona, he seemed to kind of float and glide in the air. You saw that similarly on the pass breakup in the Super Bowl. He's got a load of athleticism that has translated well to that safety spot. Again, being a former corner, you have to be athletic to be playing and be able to play in those situations. He can fit the run from 2 high structures and single high structures. You and I were talking about this on Twitter, I think the other day. Sometimes he will, not even sometimes, I think he's more of a kind of throw the shoulder tackler.
He tackles like a corner.
Yeah,
he tackles like a corner still.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I looked at it.
He throws the shoulder, and I think he also goes for the kill shot more so than he goes for, like, he wants to come downhill and blow you up. And sometimes that works, and you see it, like even on this one against Arizona, like boom, he just throws shoulder, and he's trying to create car crashes at the tackle point. And when it works, it's beautiful. But when it doesn't, he'll bounce off a guy, or he'll only be able to get an arm on a guy, and he'll miss somebody. It will lead to missed tackles. He has a career 15% missed tackle rate, but it improved in 2024. It went down to 10.5. It ballooned up this past year to 18.7, which is really high and something you don't like. I do think, though, he has shown on tape he can be a sound tackler. I think to get kind of change his approach a little bit in some of the technique, but he's a very willing tackler, quick, he's violent, he's got good range, he can go from numbers to numbers, even numbers to sideline a little bit as a single high safety. He's got a good ball skills, reads route distributions well. He's more of at the top of the end of the market in terms of someone who I think could realistically be at the top of the market for the Bills, but also could really get paid and not be a shot for them at all.
Yeah, that's what worries me about him. I think if you look at the safety market the last couple of years, these kind of post-high safeties generally get paid really well because that's the thing. Like ever since Seattle, when they had the Legion of Boom and that cover 3, the Gus Bradley defenses took over for many years, those cover 3 single high coverages, those post safeties, were living then. And that was like, hey, everyone's trying to run the cover 3. type defense. But now everyone's kind of running the Mike McDonald or going to the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And so those post high safeties, especially a guy like Bryant, who has over 900 snaps at free safety last year, only 177 in the box. And you see that range, you see that athleticism, that fluidity, and that quickness. When he takes his read steps, those two steps back on a processing run to pass, like you see him immediately come downhill quickly when it is a run to come, fit from depth. And so I think he is very athletic. I do worry that he may be a little out of the Bills' price range.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he's the top of, yeah.
You just never know, man. The safety market is always wonky. Maybe this is a year where it's down because maybe there's some good guys in the draft. I don't know. But guys with this type of athleticism and ball skills and ability to break and go make plays on the ball, man, like these kind of guys can get paid. But is this the year? Is it another one of those years where this happens for Coby Bryant?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to like include him. I like him a ton, but to your point, like I think he is at the top of like what they could spend at the safety market or like make a splash. But the safety market is always so volatile. Like I could see Coby Bryant getting like a 3-year, $11 million year, $13 million year contract, or I could see somebody giving him like $15 to $18 million a year. But the safety market is so unpredictable at times that you never know which way to lean. But he is, the kind. I always try to do things tiered when we pick like each of our 3 guys. He is the guy who I think is at the top of the market. Brian Cook was at like my value guy or more of my bang for the buck guy. But yeah, Coby Bryant, I mean, his tape is awesome. And I think he's still learning at the position. Like 100%. I think he can still get better.
100%.
Like, yeah, his being able to see the game from depth like he is, like he'll be going into this upcoming year, his 3rd year as like a full-time safety starter. He's going to continue to improve as he reads angles, sees the game from depth, and he's already starting with such a high floor. He's a really exciting prospect or potential prospect for the Bills to kind of grab in free agency there.
Well, the next guy that we're going to take a look at is very similar, a post-high type safety, Kevin Byard from the Chicago Bears. Now, he plays the post a bunch, but he's 32 and a half years old. So when I throw this guy out there, I want you guys to remember his age and what the Bills will have to do come draft time. Byard's the type of guy that I want them to bring in so that and draft a guy to teach him how to play ball. And the reason why I like Byard, he showed it on that first play, the route processing and the ball skills. He did this multiple times against the Raiders. Once again, watch his eyes and how they're trying to run that dagger, right? Here's a clearing route. Here's that in breaker. And just watch him get his eyes to that in breaking route by the Raiders, immediately break on the ball, and then, bring that in for the interception. His ball skills are very, very good. High IQ, 7 interceptions last year. Tremendous processing as a post high safety and robber safety. As you kind of see on that inverted Tampa 2, that cover 2 type robber type look. Here's another one from the same game. That was more of a 2-man route. Here's more of a 3-man route where they're trying to layer it and still try to hide Jakobi Meyers on this in-breaking route. But once again, he reads it and comes underneath and makes a play on the ball at the catch point. He's very good at doing things like that. He's just always around the ball, always making plays on the ball. My one-liner for him is that obviously he's a 32-and-a-half-year-old safety who has elite processing and remains one of the premier ball hawks in the NFL, despite obviously diminishing physical tools given his age. And he's a type of defender with superior eye discipline, route processing, and great angles of the ball, making him an ideal floor raiser for the secondary that is in transition. Again, we're assuming the Bills are going to play more cover 1, cover 3, single high type looks. Byard is the prototype type guy to bring in to assist in that transition. This play was just ridiculous. As he drops down, he's not in the post safety position, but look at him drop down towards the flats and then just read again from across the field, kind of like Blankenship. He's reading the quarterback here. The quarterback's starting his delivery, right? Quarterback's already starting his delivery. What's he do? He gets his eyes on the crossing route. He makes a beeline for the ball and intercepts. He's very impressive for a guy at his age to be able to play the post and make these type of plays. that's the type of defensive quarterback I want to see in the secondary during this first year in that transition. He'd be a perfect veteran pairing for a younger, more explosive safety like Cole Bishop. And while he comes with an aging physical profile, I mean, the $7 to $9 million price tag that I think he's going to get is fair. And we're talking short term again. I think this is a 1-year type player, a bridge type player at the position, because he could provide that high floor, but the turnover potential and elite pre-snap communication.
Yeah, I didn't want to give spoilers earlier, but he was tied for my third spot with Brian Cook. And then when I texted you this morning, seeing who you ended up going with, when you mentioned Byard, I was like, oh, sweet. That way we talk about Byard and I can just include Cook. Part of the reason why I liked Brian Cook in two of the first two clips that we showed for Cook, one against the Bills and one against the Eagles, I thought his processing and play and eyes reminded me of Kevin Byard. Like we saw in a lot of these clips. And I thought so highly of Byard for years in Tennessee. And I mean, this is a guy, he had a bit of a down 2024 and 2023 when he got traded from Tennessee to Philly in 2023. And then his first year in Chicago, down here from a ball production standpoint. But this is a guy who, going back to 2017, 8 interceptions, 4 interceptions, 6 interceptions, 1 interception, 5 interceptions, 4 interceptions, 1 in 2023, 1 in 2024, and then 7 this past year with the Bears. He just has such a good nose for the ball, as a lot of these clips are showcasing and highlighting. And like you said, the eyes, the processing, understanding route distributions. And Chicago used him in some cool ways. Like sometimes he was that non-traditional, like that Tampa player, like sometimes playing it from top down or kind of just staying in and dropping a little bit, not necessarily running the pole, but being the Tampa player. You can rock him as that single high post safety. You can rock him in 2 high coverage structures. He had an interception this past year, I think against the Saints. Yeah, it was against the Saints, because part of the reason I noted it was because Tremaine Edmonds had a really great robot where he carried Shaheed all the way across the field.
Oh yeah.
And Byard essentially goes from the post to literally the sideline, tracks this ball down, makes an interception on an overthrow, taps his feet. Just somebody who understands where to be, how to be, real strong game as a coverage player, but he's still impactful as a guy who comes forward as an initial fitter or a secondary fitter. The Chicago would blitz him off the edge a little bit. They blitz him into the C gap and B gap from time to time. So he's just a really smart, responsible veteran player who, again, similar to Blankenship, stabilizes that spot on the back end. But I think you get even more of a ball hawking nature, despite the fact that he's got miles on the tires. He's so smart, and he understands where the ball is going and how to get there and what angle to take. Yeah, just a really nice player on the back end.
Here, just watch this. You saw the run fits from the post, but look at this processing. Again, Sean McVay is trying to catch to get numbers at the point of attack by bringing Puka Nacua back over to leave this guy in the dust. Byard reads it. He immediately reads it, gets on his horse, look at the angle of the ball so he can cut it off. And then as the wide receiver cuts it back, he's there to stick him. Like, this is very good defense and processing by Byard here. When Sean McVay was trying to catch them off guard in the red zone, he reads it perfectly. And obviously, if he doesn't make this tackle, I think this guy's scoring here on this play.
Yeah, he, again, angles to the football, I think, don't just show up in, pass coverage with him. They show up, in the run game. I love the angle on this one because he's going to force that cutback. If ball carrier puts his foot in the ground, he kicks that back into 98. He kicks it back into 26, who's coming back. You force this thing back inside while also taking, an opportunity to make the play on the ball yourself, which he does, and he makes the stick. Yeah, somebody, again, who's not going to break the bank, but I think stabilizes the back end and gives you a fun ball hawking type of nature. Like somebody who reads the game like Byard, playing in a defense with the movement and the chaos creation of Jim Leonhard, that's another year for Kevin Byard where he could look to bag 5 to 8 interceptions in Leonhard's defense.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it if it was in Buffalo. So the next guy that we're going to go to, Jalen Thompson from the Cardinals, a guy that's very talented, that plays very much like Budda Baker, who we both absolutely adore as a player and the mentality he brings. And Thompson has a lot of that nastiness and ferocity that Budda Baker has.
Yeah, he's a velociraptor. I've watched him for several years playing in Arizona because I've liked what Arizona's defense has done for a couple years, and they do a lot of three high safety stuff. So he's been used in a lot of ways. Especially with how they've used Buddha and how they've used the other safeties and Garrett Williams at times and all the different options back there. But what I think is interesting with Thompson is the years where he has played like a ton of like safety and not been used as a slot. You've seen the ability to play as a true safety in two high and single high looks, particularly in the post. He's got the foot speed, he's got the athleticism, he's got the range. He can go from numbers to numbers. He can go from the post to the sideline a little bit. And I like the versatility and the diverse skill set. Even just this past year in 2025, 320 snaps in the box, 389 as like a deeper free safety, and then 249 in the slot. His career numbers speak to that as well. But he was effective and wearing all those hats and in a variety of roles and responsibilities. He's got man coverage capabilities versus tight ends and running backs, but also even some slot wide receivers. He can close down on guys pretty well. He's got a quick trigger that's explosive. He can cover a lot of ground in an instant. He's a good tackler. You'll see him a ton pick the ankle and or hook the leg on tackles. He'll attack the hips of ball carriers and grab a limb. He only has a 7% career missed tackle rate. This one's really nice, similar to kind of Byard, like we talked about earlier, where, Thompson is going to the flat, gets his eyes on the QB, realizes something's coming from behind him. So, okay, let me sink underneath this corner route, make a play on the ball. You get plays on the ball from him in two high alignments, in the hook curls, in the flats, in the post. He's got a lot of versatility and usage. I think if he went to a team that would commit him to more of just a safety, whether, deep and box and not have him play as an apex and a nickel at the same time, I think he could grow even further as a safety with the good angles that he takes to the ball as a run defender and as a pass defender. He's coming off he got an extension. He's 27 years old, but he got an extension early in his career with Arizona for 3 years, $36 million. I think he's somewhere in that range again of like 11 to 14 million, 15 at the absolute tops. He's kind of in that second tier for me because I think he could be a real impactful player, but not somebody that's going to absolutely break the bank, even though he's not necessarily a value guy from a cost standpoint because he's going to be a little more expensive.
There's not many defenses that play three safety type looks. Cardinals, they do a lot, and they have similar type guys like Thompson and Baker, and they're just very twitchy, very explosive, very feisty. They just have a different play style than a lot of different safeties in the league. And he plays again with that tenacity and if it's funny when I think about Jim Leonhard, if it were up to him and if he had the personnel to do it, I could see him being a three safety defense,
right?
But obviously I don't think he can do that in year one, but I do think Thompson offers some versatility there, as you talked about, being, positional flexibility. And, a couple years ago, we talked about kind of combining the nickel into the safety position to disguise coverages. And that's something that you absolutely can do with Thompson. He could be an overhang apex player in the slot. He could be a post. He could be a two high safety. He does a lot of things very, very well, but it's usually when he's breaking on the ball. It's usually when he's coming downhill is when he's at his best. And he's a very good top down type player, playing up high in the post or as a two high safety type guy and just reading and coming down 110 miles an hour to make some big plays. And this is very good tracking. Like this is something you don't see a ton of on film, but this play, how he's looking into the sun and then, kind of going back over his shoulders to go get to the catch point. That's very cool disguise and play on the ball. And that's something you can do with a guy like that. When you have positional flexibility and the ability to play these different positions, you can disguise coverages, you can change those pictures pre to post snap, and you can do some fun things with a guy like Jalen Thompson.
Yeah, that first one you highlighted against the Bucks was really one that grabbed me. Like I'll always remember Javon Holland doing this for the Dolphins against the Bills several years ago.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yo, he's the M-man on the line of scrimmage. He screams back to the post to pick up Tez Johnson, realizes it's going behind him to the seam, and he just speed turns right to it, tracks the ball, gets on top of it, like goes up, high points it, like hangs in the air a little bit. Again, I just like that was awesome. And if you can continue to do that with him, that's cool. But I imagine that skill set like just sitting as the post safety, right? And playing
Yeah.
it in a regular like cover
Does he
one or
even see
cover
the
three,
ball here? Like, let's look
right?
at this. Okay, okay, here's a shadow from the light. So the sun is definitely pointing this way, right? So and you can see the front side of him is it's all in the sun. It's all white. But honestly, he's not even looking at the quarterback. He's kind of reading this guy, and this guy stops. And so what does he do? He's like, all right, well, they must be doing a high-low, more of like a Yankee concept or deep crosser. So he gets his eyes on that guy, and then that you can see the ball start to drop in there. Then he finds the ball and makes a play on it. Like, that's very good intuition. That is very good. Just, I don't want to say necessarily even ball skills, because I think he was playing the man. I think he was playing both those guys, and that brought him to the ball. That is great instincts and awareness by Jalen Thompson.
Yeah, he's got some real good plays on the ball where you can see him processing and feeling and seeing what's going on. He's got a good sense of spacing. He's got a good sense of what route is coming and how to space out the distribution, read and play it through. And then, yeah, violence and tenacity, in coverage. Even this one, too, against Philly, he's covering Goddard on the outside and he's all over him. Yeah, exactly. He cancels Goddard out and then he sees the route coming back in on the inside. So he leaves Goddard, falls off of him, and then jumps this route and absolutely annihilates the wide receiver as he tries to go up and make this interception. You see these kind of plays where, again, it's the velociraptor part I love, obviously. Like, you can use him in a multitude of spots. He's quick, he's fast, he's got range, he's got athleticism, he's violent, but he's also a smart player. He processes well, he takes good angles to the ball, and he's sound when he gets to the tackle point. I've liked him a lot for a couple years, and I'm excited to kind of see what he can be. And yeah, this next guy, I am not surprised at all made this.
He's a guy I've liked for a lot of years. Alohi Gilman with the Chargers and the Ravens. 6 pass breakups last year, tied for 4th. He's again more of that bargain value, probably in that, PFF has him at 6.75 mil a year. Spot Track 4 mil a year. 543 free safety snaps last year, 314 box snaps. So pretty good balance when it comes to that. And they brought him over to the Ravens when he got traded over to the Ravens. It was to help open up things for Kyle Hamilton, and you still saw a lot of plays from Gilman on the ball. He's always attacking, plays 110 miles an hour, much like Jalen Thompson, to be honest with you. Very good communicator, versatile, high IQ player. My one-liner for him was, he's a 28-year-old. He's only 28, which I thought by now he'd be older. High-octane energizer bunny and versatile communicator who plays with a relentless 110-mile-per-hour motor. While he lacks elite recovery speed and stopping power, he wins through a high IQ positioning, tenacious pursuit, and a play bigger than his size mentality. And so you're going to see that a bunch. Here's a play of him fitting from depth, or making a play on the ball from depth. You see that tight end come across the middle. He reads it. He clicks and closes and delivers on that tight end, creating that pass breakup. You see that a bunch where, especially some of his LA clips, not just this year, but the prior years, he's very, very top down, very click and close oriented on his film. He makes a lot of plays that way. Here's another one of those plays, click and close, plant and go. You see that stick to the post right there. Boom. By Jefferson, you see him plant and just go right to the ball. Very tight angle, very good transition. Look at the initial back pedal. And then once he realizes he's going to the post, look at this, boom, right there. That turn and play on the ball. Very good awareness and, break on the ball to break that up.
Yeah, this was an interesting move for the Ravens in season. They traded Odafe Owe for Gilman. Yeah. And it was like, like adding to the safety room. And it was so Gilman could play more of the back end and they could take Kyle Hamilton and move him more towards that big nickel and unleash him. And that's a significant move because this Ravens defense last year took off and stabilized when they had Kyle Hamilton play more of a traditional or a true safety. So to take him out of that and move him back to the big nickel, one, it was to unlock Hamilton a bit, but it was going to be done for someone that they needed to trust or have faith in on the back end. And so that was kind of a cool feather in the cap for Gilman. And yeah, you see some of this ability to play on the ball. I like this one too against the Raiders from Jacoby Myers. Like, you can just see him, like you have labeled, trust his eyes. He's reading this the whole way. He's in position And you can tell between reading it or knowing what's coming, he's waiting for Myers to break. And as soon as Myers breaks on that corner out, look at his angle. He stays flat right across the bottom of the letters and then swoops in at the last minute to go underneath, go with that front arm or that inside arm to cut across and get the pass breakup. He's another guy who, again, I think provides a high floor for that spot. Someone who's seen a lot of snaps in this league, in multiple defenses, in some big games, and gives you a baseline at that safety position to pair with somebody like Cole Bishop that you're looking to kind of use as a rover or a monster man and put him anywhere and everywhere, knowing that you have a vet and an experienced, effective guy on the back end who can hold it down and give you reliable snaps.
Yeah, he's much like Jalen Thompson when it comes to ill intentions, physicality, plays bigger than his actual size. Here he is in the box. Whether he's in the box or he's coming from depth in the run game, he comes down with ill intentions. He comes down with purpose. And I think that shows up a lot in his film. He's one of those scrappy players. And again, yeah, I have a little bias because I do go back to him, and I interviewed him at the Senior Bowl. I was a big fan of him for the Bills back then. And every free agency that he's been in, he's been all over my radar because his game doesn't change. You know what you're getting with him. It's a very high floor, a very good communicator, a guy that projects as a solid bridge starter or high-end safety number 3. In Leonhard's system, he's the energy specialist, a player who kind of sets the tempo for the defense and handles the complex pre-snap rotation. Some of that emotional factor that we used to get with Jordan Poyer. He offers a higher floor for communication, but it lacks the elite tackling ceiling of other safeties in this class. But another guy that just I typically fall in love with or adore when he hits free agency.
I saw him on the list like weeks ago, and I was like, Eric's going to pick Alohi Gilman. Like, I just knew it. I knew he was, yeah, because he went back to the Chargers for a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Because I would say we talked about him last year as well. It was pure Chargers stuff. And yeah, he just gives you look at these clips, like there's a lot of just usefulness, like the ability to play through wide receivers and the flats, the ability to fit the run a little bit, kind of match on the back end, reliability, consistency, and showing some of that versatility. You can do this. And okay, Cole Bishop, like you're going to play a little deeper on this one. We'll let Gilman play down a little. That ability to kind of wear multiple hats, understand where he needs to be, and let other guys kind of excel at who they are and what they are, knowing he can hold a position down himself. Again, in a nice value, a nice bang for your buck type of move for the Buffalo Bills at the safety spot.
He's kind of like a glue guy, right? Like, okay, we need you to do this so other guys can do that. Okay, I'll do that. And he'll do it with a very high floor and consistency. I think he's one of those, glue type guys when we're talking the safety position and allowing some of the playmakers that the Bills do have currently in the secondary go make plays while he holds down some of the dirty work, some of the scrappy stuff that you don't want your elite secondary type players, kind of holding down. So he can do that. He's that glue type player.
Yeah, 1000%. I think a glue, when we've used that verbiage now for several players throughout this free agent cycle, these type of glue guys, and these are guys, again, that it might not be the sexiest name, and you'll hear it and be like, oh, like Alohi Gilman for like a 1-year, $6.5 million deal. And you'll be like, oh, like what? But no, like you need moves like that. And there's going to be moves like that. It might be at safety. It might be in the interior defensive line. It might be at edge. Like you need those glue moves. And that's not just because of where the Bills are financially. Every team needs those, but especially the Bills, who are a little strapped financially, and kind of making moves there. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of these glue type of moves. And that's, again, what the Bills need in year one as they transition from the Sean McDermott defense to Jim Leonhard's defense and have to start to incorporate different body types, archetypes, play style, skill sets in order to do all that and add. Again, if you don't have $100 million worth of cap space, you can't be just like, great, let's sign these 8 guys and we'll take care of it. You have to find some value, some bang for your buck, and some effectiveness within that, and taking these skill sets that we've broken down at the safety spot. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting for the safety spot. I also wonder too, like, could this be a spot where PJ Locke maybe fits in a little bit? I
watched his film, man. I don't know. He's funny? Jag to me, bro.
You know what's funny? This year, 2024 PJ Locke was so much different than 2025. I didn't realize or remember it, at least, He got hurt in the
He
playoff
got hurt.
game
Yeah.
against the Bills. He had like a spinal fusion between his L4 and L5. He played better this year for a guy who had that, but 2024, man, he was buzzing. And I was like, okay, the reason I left him off, I didn't know if what we saw in 2025 is what he was going to be,
Yeah.
or would another year removed, he'd start to get a little more juice and get a little more violence to him again and capability, or because that's a serious thing. A spinal fusion is no joke.
Yeah.
And that's why I left him off. I didn't know what that would present like long term and what kind of player he could be going forward.
I know a lot of fans immediately, and we even talked about it and said it, that, hey, Jim Leonhard's going to bring guys in that he's coached, and obviously PJ Locke is one of those guys. And while I agree, and when I went to go watch all of his snaps, I came away just unimpressed, man. I don't know, like, whether it was the run fits, whether it's his coverage stuff, he didn't do anything to wow me, especially if we're talking compared to the 5 or 6 guys that we talked about tonight. Could they still bring him and he'll be fine? Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't impressed with.
It makes it even more annoying that arguably his best play all year was when he picked off Josh Allen in the divisional round, because Allen hung that ball up a little bit. It made me even more mad.
I know exactly. Yeah, his best play of the year was against the
right?
Bills.
The freaking odds.
Yeah. With that said, I think those safeties are a good place to start when it comes to free agency here in a couple weeks. But obviously, wide receiver is a big talking point. It has been for years. And even going through some of this wide receiver film, not to be a Debbie Downer, it was few and far between for me for guys that, one, fit what the Bills need, when it comes to the wide receiver room and, a vertical type threat. And obviously the money factor is a pretty big one, but I think overall this free agency class at wide receiver is pretty weak. There's a 1 to 2 to maybe 3 big ticket items. But when it comes to like us and we're trying to find these guys for offenses, for the Bills offense, we look to the film, we look to the analytics, and there weren't many like mid to low value standouts, whether it's the film or the analytics. And so, honestly, we're going to talk about a few guys that we could peg into the Bills offense and see translating and projecting into the Bills offense. But man, I can see why a lot of fans and analysts and content creators are talking more of the, hey, what are the trade options? Because I think you can get more bang for your buck going that route. You're going to get a higher level athlete, a higher profile player that could make an impact immediately, as opposed to, okay, hey, we have this mid-tier guy that's going to put up 500 yards, And so I think I understand now a little more about why people were discussing some of the trade options as opposed to, hey, let's pick up a free agent, because even the upper echelon of free agent wide receivers are kind of unimpressive and much. There's a lot of risk involved. And especially if you talk about free agency, because that's just what happens at some of these premier positions. They get overpaid and very rarely do they live up to it.
Yeah. Like even if you're just kind of going by the name factor, like Tyreek Hill, horrible human, but also completely destroyed his knee. Like a guy who's based on speed and transition and fluidity, dislocated his knee, tore ligaments, destroyed his knee completely. Mike Evans, who I still really like, little long in the tooth, mileage on the tires, but a guy who consistently gets hurt. Like, is Mike Evans the type of guy that is going to be healthy or even able to suit up come week 17, 18 playoff run? Like, as a person who's had Mike Evans in fantasy football for almost his entire career, he kills me every year because he's hurt down the stretch.
And the scary thing about him is, like, when he is healthy, like if you look at some of the analytics, he's like top 5 in everything when it comes to efficiency metrics. When it comes to, hey, how is he versus zone? He's top 5. Versus man, he's top 3. Like, he can win in so many different ways. He's also a big body. He could be the X. Like, if we're talking big ticket upper echelon guy, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah. But
there's still a risk. Why? Because of injuries. And so I get it, man. It's hard because the Bills are cash strapped.
Yeah.
And they can make a few moves and pull a few levers to add a little money, but you're still going to be, if we're talking wide receiver free agents, you're still taking a huge risk. And it's not something I think Beane can really afford. If he's going to take a risk, I would assume it would be, hey, let's make a trade for that guy, because that, again, it's a proven commodity, and you're probably having a higher consistency and stability when it comes to the player you're trading for at wide receiver.
Yeah, that's super fair. Like, if you could guarantee me Mike Evans would stay healthy,
Mm.
I would have no problem paying Mike Evans. Like,
Yeah,
on
and
the
I
open
think he's
market.
projected in like $13 to $15
Yes.
million. He might get a little more than that, but
Yeah.
still, even that is a very good value for what the Bills need if he's
Yes.
healthy.
Yes. And then you go from there. Like, I know every Bills fan's darling since midseason has been Alec Pierce. He's either going to get paid or he's going to get franchise tag. So he's not going to be available. And then when you go from there, it's like everything else is just underwhelming except for, one guy who we're going to get into. And then you have some other fits and it's kind of like certain elements or skill sets. I would love, hey, and even to this point, like I'm down a bit on Bryan Thomas Jr., but I'd rather trade a day 3 pick for Bryan
100%.
Thomas Jr. than grab one of these free agents. I would love to trade for Michael Pittman, but his contract is a little wonky there. Man, I would kill for Michael Pittman. But yeah, I think he's on like a 4-year, $70-something million deal or something, a 3-year, $70 million deal, which is very high. But this first guy we're going to get into, Romeo Doubs, wide receiver from the University of Nevada, and then with the Green Bay Packers for the past 4 years. He was the main guy that I was like, okay, this is a higher tier type of wide receiver who I still think could be affordable in towards the higher end of the affordability scale, but still realistic within that, but who also ticks a lot of boxes for the Bills with his ability to separate underneath in the intermediate and then be able to push downfield every once in a while too.
Yeah, some of his stats are awesome. 1.91 yards per route run, which is 23rd out of 146 wide receivers. EPA per target, he's 15th. But the one stat grab that just blew my mind was his ability to move the chains. First downs or touchdowns per target, 50%. So 50% of the time he's getting you a first down or a touchdown. That was 5th overall among all wide receivers. He's probably in that, PFF has him in that $15 million range. Spot Track at $12 million a year. Again, some of the analytics for him are very good. He was 7th in win rate versus zone. He was 12th in the red zone win rate. But he does just a lot of things very well. I don't think he's a 1. I don't think he's a true 1.
I agree.
But I do think he's a high-end number 2. And here are some things we can kind of dive into. So I like his twitchiness, his aggressiveness during his releases. He's very quick and explosive out of his releases. And you can see him on this play in the release, went outside, but also at the top of the route, he breaks. And then what shows up consistently is his ability to adjust to passes. Look how he goes behind the DB and snags it and brings it in. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, his drop rate relative to other players is not that bad. It's actually, I want to say it's top tier, but his drop rates aren't as bad as people make him out to be. I think a lot of Packers fans, when you post these clips on social, they immediately reference the drops, but when you look relative to the league, it's not as bad. And so I think he can be a high-end wide receiver too. You see some really nice stuff from him when he creates separation using his tools. So you saw it in that first clip that I showed. And right here, look at using his eyes, using his body language against these single high looks. And we always talk about, hey, teams like to run these crossers. And so they build these constraints, these route constraints on it. They sell it with their eyes, that they're going to be running this crosser. But what do? And you see Doubs do it here. Boom, snaps it off, gets out to the boundary. And he can do that in a multitude of ways at a multitude of levels.
And in that clip, he's beating a good corner. That's DJ Reed for the Detroit Lions. Like, Bills fans should know from his time in New York, like, DJ Reed can play some corner and he's a good dude in man coverage, and Doubs puts him in the blender a little bit there. That's one of the biggest things for me. My kind of line on him is deception and pacing in his stems. He understands leverage, angles, and space. Strong release package, strong stem work, and a legitimate weapon in the low red zone because of his release packages and his stem work. I understand the notion on the drops, and you drops are always going to be inexcusable, especially for a wide receiver. Like, no one's ever going to like them. But I feel like a lot of them are, again, not to paint it easy or like sell it short or whatever, to be like, oh, it's more of like a concentration drop or a focus drop, because he does have good hands, and you watch him make grabs, contested catches, back of the end zone in traffic with a body on him. But this is really like this example here, that clip against Cincinnati. It's all of this working in the underneath, the intermediate, that deception to sell one thing and do something else. Like, hey, I'm breaking across the middle. Psych. Let me put my feet in the ground, sink my hips a little bit, and then break back outside. You see that defender keep
There's
pursuing
the
over the
hands. Look at
top.
the hand eye right there in front
Oh,
of that
yes.
other DB that's in the flats.
Yes, going to get the football, plucking it. You see him do that a lot. Like, that's again why the drops, again, they're not ideal, and it's not okay to drop the football for anybody, especially a wide receiver. But he does have good hands, and you see him win a lot. Again, in the underneath and the intermediate, separate against man coverage, on slants, hitches, hooks, stops, digs, outs, crossers, drags. I also think he's shown a propensity to read coverages and then throttle down or settle into passing windows. He could do it
Yeah.
something on like a quick little snag route, or even you'll watch him go across the middle on drags and then realize it's zone, and he'll settle down and sit in a window right as Jordan Love is about to find him and pin it on him. And he's also a good blocker and a willing blocker, which is something you have to be in that Packers offense. All those dudes, him, Wicks, they all block.
Yeah, they do. And before we move forward in some of the breakdowns, I just want to put in perspective. All right, drop percentage. I have it sorted, courtesy of PFF, by the highest drop percentages in the league. You can see some of those names, Jordan Addison in there, Brian Thomas Jr., Mike Evans has a higher drop percentage. Igbuka has a higher
And
drop
I would
percentage.
say Evans is a guy who's had drops throughout his entire career.
Yep.
Again, my fantasy team knows this.
Igbuka is there. I mean, Devontae Adams all have higher drop percentages. Keon Coleman, yeah.
CD Lamb.
Yeah, so some big names there, and then you're getting down to Doubs at 6. Again, I think that people don't quite realize. I think some of the drops are emotionally attached. There's some emotion attached to that from Packers fans, but really a 6 drop percentage is not bad. It's not all that bad at all. And so, and this is among, minimum targets, 20% of 200. So again, there's some names on here that are way higher than him in drops. And so I just wanted to kind of, again, add some context to that, because I think a lot of fans believe that he just has these huge drop issues, but more times than not, when you watch the film on him, you're more impressed with his hands and his concentration and his ability to pluck the ball out of the air.
I was gonna say this one stood out for me. The one earlier you showed against Denver, where he's able to kind of track that ball on the sideline and get his hands back up and pluck it. Yeah, I come away impressed with them more often than not, rather than seeing the drops as the bigger story, the glaring thing. And I'm completely in lockstep with you. I don't think he's a true one. I think he's somebody that. Oh, I love this one. I forgot about this one.
So this route stem, look at where he's aligned. Look at how he attacks that kind of outside leverage that the corner has. And then right at the top, he makes it look right there like he's going to break to the middle. Look at the body language. It looks like he's going to press off that left foot and go to the middle. Once he do, boom, he breaks it outside. He's got some sneaky, really good routes. And then on the back end, once again, adjusting to the ball, he does that a lot, away from his frame, away from his body. And he does a great job of doing that. This one, you see him, he catches with his hands. Why is that important? Because now he can catch it and get upfield to convert. Again, he's a easy bucket type guy. Again, he's not an alpha per se. He's a very good number 2, but my one-liner for him, he's an elite easy bucket receiver and chain mover who wins with veteran level route tempo, coverage processing, and a high-end contested catch ability. While he lacks kind of snappiness when it comes to separation at the break point, his efficiency metrics, specifically ranking 5th in first downs or touchdowns per target, mark him as a premier intermediate threat. And I think he's the type of guy that would thrive with Josh Allen at quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree. He is. I've been saying this for years, and on the defensive side, but it's easier on offense. Get yourself some bucket getters. I think he is a bucket getter on the outside. Like, he's somebody who I trust, again, especially in these low red zone situations, like him being the guy. Now, and Keon hasn't been bad in these situations, but having these package plays or these runs with pass tags and having Doubs being the guy on there, and just, I know he's going to separate and create some space for Allen and be a guy. Here's him beating Reed again on another one. Poor DJ Reed there. Yeah, the low red zone work is really nice. I think this adds another element for defenses that are having to accommodate or account for, I should say, Allen in the run game in the low red zone. I think, he can be a high-end wide receiver too. I would love to bring in, Romeo Doubs, and then get yourself a flyer in the draft, somebody who can be like another kind of wide receiver 2, or maybe like a high-end wide receiver 3, somebody with some speed, someone with some stretch. I think Doubs can do that a little bit, but I think he still is in more of like what we've shown here, which is more of the strong worker and separator in the underneath and the intermediate, which has a ton of value, but you still need that field stretching presence and element along with him.
And so if we're talking field stretchers, Tyquan Thornton is
Yeah.
a guy that I know a lot of Bills fans, are looking to bring in as a wide receiver for the Bills because of his ability to get down the field. He was in the 98th percentile for wide receivers last year in EPA per target. When we're talking EPA per target versus man, he was in the 76th percentile. In first downs or touchdowns per target, he was in the 66th percentile at 40.5%. Or obviously Doubs was more in that 50% range. But his ability to not only create separation with that 4.2 speed, but to track the ball down the field. Like, look, this one, the DB is in trail technique and the ball's thrown up and over that DB, and he's able to track it perfectly right into his hands. Here you see it from the end zone angle, but obviously he has that field stretching ability. But for me, I came away blown away with how well he caught the ball down the field and that ball tracking when really drops have been a major issue for him his entire career.
Yeah, that's super fair. Yeah, this season with him in Kansas City, early on, it kind of looked like, uh-oh, they found the deep guy again. Like, and
Yeah.
Mahomes
Yeah.
was putting it on him, and Thornton was bailing him out at times too with the good ball tracking and the hands downfield. Pure field stretching element. I remember when he came out of Baylor. Oh, yeah, because he was with the Patriots. I always
Yep.
confuse, and now it's blanking. I mean, I always confuse Tyquan Thornton with someone else, and now like I'm completely blanking on who it is. But yeah, the ball tracking showed. I would say this Giants game was big for him. The
Yeah.
Jaguars game was big for him. He had a couple moments in the Chargers game. Yeah, this one. Oh, I was really hopeful that the Giants were going to beat the Chiefs in this one. And when that play happened to Thornton, I was like, all right, never mind. Yeah, he's getting grabbed. The
Yeah.
DB is all over him. And look at
Yeah.
him make
Body
that.
control. Yeah.
That is a pure contested catch from just a guy who's known as a flyer and a field stretcher. Nice little element from him. I would love for the Bills to be able to get like a field stretching element and somebody who's going to be a regular down player towards the top of the depth chart at the wide receiver. But if they can't get that, they need it in some capacity. And so Tyquan Thornton, someone with that type of skill set, that type of real juice and flyby ability, is an absolute very viable candidate.
Yeah, and again, his ability to adjust. Here it is. You talked about the Jags game and how he blew by this
Mhm.
guy. It's a bad throw, but he's able to put the brakes on and look at him drop those hips and stop to come back for the ball to save that big play for the Chiefs. So my one-liner for him is an elite vertical and efficiency specialist who wins with that 4.28 speed and very good ball tracking. While he is more of like an upright linear athlete with a restricted route tree, his ability to lull defenders asleep and separate vertically makes him one of the most dangerous situational deep threats in the league. He's more of that high upside situational wide receiver 4 in that 3 mil to 5 mil range that who could provide the vertical gravity the offense has lacked in Buffalo. And so think about it, when I looked at his route tree, courtesy of True Media, it was eerily reminiscent of Gabe Davis. Obviously not to the high level production, but the goes, the posts, the corners, whether it's from a boundary alignment or from the slot. He ran a lot of big plays from the slot as well. You saw a few of them here. And there were times where his production could have been better,
Yeah.
but Mahomes just missed him time after time.
Yeah, those vertical stemming routes, that's what you want to see him on. And oh yeah, he beats his man again. He beats Sauce right over the top there. And Mahomes just misses him. He's got the type of speed where even if he is more of like a sub package kind of guy or like a gimmick guy to the point where like, oh, like Thornton's in the game, you know he's gonna go deep. He's still so fast that he still can probably beat you deep, or at the very least, like stretch the field. Like that speed is so real. That type of speed. This isn't what Mecole Hardman was last year for the Bills, or even Brandon Cooks at this stage, like this, or even Curtis Samuel. Like this is real long speed right now, right out of the gate. Someone who
Yeah.
he ran a 4.28, testing coming out of college. He's probably at like a 4.32 right now,
Yeah.
maybe like a
Right.
little, which is still crazy. Like he's an absolute blazer, somebody who, even if you know what's coming, it's still hard to stop it because that speed is that real and it's that much of a threat. And if you're dropping it into the rest of this wide receiver room, kind of complements things well. What a fool I am.
Yeah, and I mean his teammate is the next guy, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and I want to talk a little bit about something because I put it on social media yesterday because Brady mentioned where they can use Shakir and they want to find ways to evolve and put him on the outside and make big plays, and I think guys like Thornton and Marquise Hollywood Brown can help the Bills do that, and I mean that by, hey, okay, Shakir is now a boundary guy in 3 wide receiver set. If you put a speed element in the slot like Marquise Brown or Tyquan Thornton to lift the coverage, that's going to open up the intermediate area, the deep intermediate area for Khalil Shakir to lift the coverage, to allow him to access the middle of the field, but at a different level. Because we're used to the short stuff behind the line of scrimmage, obviously, very, very used to that. But we're not so used to seeing him access the middle of the field in that intermediate or to that deeper range. And I think guys with speed, whoever it is, whether it's in the draft or free agency, adding a speed element that can bump inside to add a vertical threat to open up things for Khalil Shakir, I think these type of guys would pay huge dividends to adding the versatility and getting the ball to Shakir at different levels of the field.
Yeah, instead of putting Shakir on the outside and having him, run one of the double Chinas and then have Dalton Kincaid run the option from the inside and then kind of be like, oh, okay, that's it. Yeah, I think that's a super fair point. That field stretching element can present in multiple ways. And I've thought of it more from like, oh man, like to let Josh Palmer breathe a little bit more and Dalton Kincaid breathe a little bit more. But that's a fair point for Shakir. Like, get him the ball in some space over the middle of the field and let him juke and break tackles and turn into a running back when he gets the ball in his hands. That's a very fair presentation as well. And again, another breadcrumb from that presser yesterday and Brady talking about it and making specific reference to, we don't always have to get him the ball in those short areas. Really something I think a lot of Bills fans are clamoring for, and maybe the Bills even recognize in-house.
Yeah, here's some of that vertical element. You saw it from the slot earlier. Here's one versus single high as a boundary guy snapping off this deep V route. We call this a deep V, where you're kind of attacking the post and then breaking out away from the post safety. And you see that separation on Benford there, unfortunately, against the Bills. And you see that a bunch from him. So, again, that vertical slot. Here he is in this slot right here. Look how he uses and abuses Kalen Bullock, the safety for the Texans. And this is, again, underthrown. If this is thrown on the line, this is a touchdown. This is a touchdown. And so he can do it as a boundary guy or a slot guy and attack those 2 high safety structures, run those bender routes down the middle of the field. And if the safeties stay on the hashes, boom, you have a big play down the middle versus a nickel corner or a deep dropping middle linebacker. If they're in single high, well, guess what? He has the ability from the slot to, take that post safety with him so that Shakir can come and follow him on a deep dig route, a dagger type concept. Adding that vertical element, that speed element can just help the Bills offense, obviously. But I think a lot of people are just thinking of it from the perspective of like, hey, we just want passes outside the boundary. No, it's going to open up other roles and other areas of the field that teammates for these guys can access, like Shakir, like Palmer, like Kincaid and others.
Yeah, I would love somebody who can run past people and make big catches downfield, like with high air yards and all that stuff. But again, the type of verbiage like I keep going back to is field stretching. And I just want field stretching. I want someone with speed who doesn't mind running for the love of the game routes. Like, clear some stuff out and let's get those guys underneath and in the intermediate some more space. And Hollywood Brown still has that speed. We looked at him last year at this time.
Yeah,
ironically, he was one of our wide receiver targets again.
That's
so
right.
We're kind of going back to the playing the hits here in the Cover One film room, but he's still got that speed. It's still very real. And again, the Bills still need that element. And yeah, I think that's a good point about Shakir. If you want to kind of open things up a little bit, or even, again, that threat and that presence to be able to get the ball quickly to Shakir, but maybe instead of a single high alignment with a down safety, it's a 2 high structure because they're afraid of getting beat over the top. And now when you spit it out to Shakir around the line of scrimmage, he has more space to work.
Yeah, I mean, here's that 2 high safety structure in the red zone. You get a Mike matched up against Marquise Brown. You see that he's got 2 drops in the last 2 years. 2 drops in the last 2 years. Look at the boundary awareness and concentration along the back line here.
That's a great catch.
Dude, it's amazing.
That's
That
a
is
great catch.
amazing. And so he's a very reliable guy. When you're talking, especially for the bang for your buck factor, right? You know, he's projected in the $6.5 million range by PFF, 5.5 for a spot track. My one-liner for him is only a 28-year-old elite speed specialist and technician who wins with upper echelon acceleration and refined boundary awareness. While his separation win rates have dipped into the lower percentiles against both man and zone, he remains a high floor Z or slot option with excellent concentration and a 2% drop rate that provides reliable explosive potential. He's a very well-rounded guy that could be added to the Bills room where you could get your bang for your buck, but open up other roles for players in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, he's someone who I just hope stays in the bang for your buck. Like, I'm going to go back to last year and Tutu Atwell, who I think actually we had as a target in the film room as well, right?
Year,
yeah, he got a 1-year deal with the Rams, but it was 10 mil. And I was like, damn, like Tutu Atwell, like that was when I remember seeing the Palmer contract. I thought Palmer got paid more than I wanted him to get paid. But then it was also like, what do you expect? Like Tutu Atwell just got $10 million on a 1-year deal. Like, I hope if
and
Brown
did nothing this year. So maybe maybe that brings that floor down.
Hopefully, yeah. Kind of pulls lets the air out of that balloon a little bit for the wide receiver market. Yeah, if Brown can stay in that affordable range around that 5 to 6 mil, cool. The closer he gets to double digits, I feel like then the bang for your buck starts to dissipate a little bit. But that wide receiver market is so weird.
It's so weird. And last year, 49 receptions, 587 yards, 5 touchdowns. So, when you're talking that bang for your buck range, I think if you're still, even if you pay him that Atwell contract, 10 mil, 8 to 10 mil is still not a major wide receiver contract. Now it's probably, probably only a year contract. But he was still very, very steady. And again, I think Mahomes in a down year also missed some things where the production could have even been better. Because, even versus, let's see, he's only 5'9", so he's a smaller guy, but again, he's got that speed and acceleration still that I think would be a nice role, obviously, to add to the Bills wide receiver room. So
yeah, they need it.
Here's our last wide receiver, man. It's again, this class wasn't a big fan of this class. There were a couple guys that we kind of looked at and were like, nothing really stands out. There were no analytical darlings. There were no like route technicians. There weren't guys that there were guys that could just run, which we highlighted a couple of those guys, but there weren't really guys that just like we clung to. I can't honestly say that I have my guy or guy I would pound the table for in free agency from this free agency wide receiver class. I mean, Doubs is probably the only guy, but even him, I'm like, you're going to be paying a premium for a wide receiver too.
That's exactly. I'm like, yeah. How much is Doubs going to get paid? Like, is he going to push 20 mil?
15 to 18 mil, probably. Like, easily.
And you're looking at it right now. Darnell Mooney, 13 mil a year. Khalil Shakir, 13.2. Cooper Kupp, 15. Jerry Jeudy, 17.5. Jacoby Myers, 20. Mike Evans, 20.5. Stephon Diggs, 21.1. Chris Godwin, 22. Adams, 22. Ridley, 23. Like, Doubs could be like, you're hoping like 15, but if you told me he got like 18 to 20 mil, I'd be like, okay. Like, and then I don't know if I want to pay that. Yeah, I don't. It's funny with how deep the wide receiver class is in the draft this year. I feel like it's the antithesis in the free agency market. Like, it was just, you and I were talking offline before we started. Like, I watched so many guys and I was just like, no, meh. I feel like the closest I could get to my guy is Doubs, but I also don't love like what I think he's going to get paid, which kind of is what makes it murky. If I had like my guy and this is pie in the sky that I just don't think would really happen, like I said, I'd trade for Michael Pittman. I would like to trade for Michael Pittman, please. But that's very few and far between and not likely.
See, for me, it would be, if we're talking upside, we're talking cheap contract, it'd be Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what he can do. And you're not paying him, you're making him still earn that contract instead of paying for pass production. Yeah. But I mean, you saw some of the plays where he's going over the middle and he don't want to, You know, there are going to be some passes that Josh are going to throw and lead you into some traffic.
Yep.
You better go and get it, or else you're not going to be getting the ball that often.
Yep.
And so I don't know if he's got that or if he learned from that. And so
I'm thinking of that.
I'm
thinking of Trey locking him up a little bit, and I'm like, damn, like 30-something-year-old Trey White's putting you in the cell. Like, oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still got the traits. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you can get him for a 5th round or 4th round pick, sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it was a tough watch, and we've been or we're towards the end of this too when it comes to like doing a lot of evaluation for free agency. So we're kind of burned out a little bit as well. I mean, we up over, I think we're up over 50 for me, at least up over 50 free agents that I looked at in the last 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Like, it's crazy. And you can only get to so many. And so it does wear on you a little bit, but we hope that we, found some guys like we typically do, hit on a few of these guys. This year's going to be crazy just because of the changes. But when it came to the safeties, I think we have an idea on what they're looking for. Will we nail a few of them? Who knows? But the wide receiver class was a tough watch and tough, group to put together. Cause again, you're thinking about who's in the room, what they can do, how they can, augment that group and evolve the Joe Brady offense at the same time. You can't pay the wide receiver premium. And so it's been a fun free agency. I know we left out some of the interior offensive linemen, but we just ran out of time. And we'll probably mention a few guys next week in the top 10 type standings, because we have a little more time to watch some of those interior offensive linemen, and maybe even add a couple if they do make the list when we put that show together for next week.
Yeah, just make Connor McGovern and David Edwards take hometown discounts and come back for really cheap, and I would take that. Thank you. It's been the wide receivers pissed me off because we've watched so much tape, and I was mad that I had to spend the amount of time I did watching all these wide receivers that I passed on, and it's just like meh. And I think this kind of, again, as an exercise and trying to take value from it, pushed even more so like how important wide receiver is going to be in the draft for the Bills. Like, I feel like it made me think, okay, they have to get one on day 1, day 2, or early day 3, just because of what it looks like in this market. And how it's kind of moving, but
or 2.
Or 2. That's fair. Right. Safety is a really fun one. Safety for me is a cool domino, because I wonder, league wide, we're seeing like it fluctuates every year. Sometimes safeties are getting paid. Sometimes it's like an overlooked position and people don't care. And I wonder what type of market that is this year. Is this a year, where someone's going to pay Coby Bryant $18 million a year? Or is it the year where someone's only going to pay him $11 million a year? And how the market dictates where people go, how the Bills fit into that. And then is safety one of the spots where that's a bang for the buck for the type of Bills?
So just real quick, just to look back again, last year, free agency, safety position, Javon Morig from the went to the Panthers for $17 million AAV, which again, I didn't see that.
No.
Javon Holland, $15 million. Cameron Bynum got $15 million.
Yeah, Colts gave him money.
Hufanga, obviously, $13 million. Justin Reed, $10.5 million. Andre Cisco, who didn't work out really because of injury, $8.5 million. Jeremy Chin, $8 million. And then you see a drop off to Eric Murray, $6.5 million. Xavier Woods, $4 million. So it was like, okay, here's a nice big shelf of $17 million to right around $8 million. There's 4 to 6 guys, and then there was a big drop off. And so I don't know what that's going to look like at safety this year, but there are a few guys that kind of fit some of these type of roles and safeties that were assigned last year. And so, man, it'll be interesting to see safety. I always talk to Greg about the contracts of positions and players before I go live on these shows, and he was like, he really just flip a coin. You just never know.
The Trevin Merrick move from last year with Carolina is one that still sticks with me. He is currently the 6th highest paid safety based on average annual value. And I don't think he's a horrible player, but I did not see him getting that contract coming from the Raiders and going to the Panthers. And the fact that he got $17 million threw me for a loop. I mean, the Panthers also, J.C. Horn is sick, but the Panthers paid J.C. Horn out of nowhere and made him like one of the highest paid corners in the league. But yeah, I saw that Merrick deal, and I was like, dang, like if Trevin Merrick is getting $17 million, again, this was last year, that makes me think like, because if he's getting 17, Coby Bryant should be getting 20 if we're basing it off of that. Like, and that terrifies me for the safety market, because that's going to balloon everything. Yeah, safety's a real interesting domino. There's going to be some bang for your buck value moves for the Bills. It's just a matter of where they come, how they come, and whatever they do, we will be here to cover you every single step of the way. Erik, any final thoughts or parting words for the people before we say goodbye here?
Honorable mentions. I didn't really get to a few of those because like it's funny, like I'll get 2 or 3 guys, 4 guys at each position, and then as I watch more film, like I'm taking him off. Some
Yeah.
honorable mentions because of their free safety ability, to play the post, because of their tackling, their IQs, for whatever reasons. Cameron Curl,
I
was
knew
liked
it.
with the
I
Rams.
knew it.
Cameron Curl's a guy,
I
and
knew it.
then I'm talking bargain basement. Nick Scott from the Panthers played with Moehrig
Oh,
that you
okay.
talked about. Nick Scott was another LA Ram that we really liked.
That's right.
If you guys remember going back to a couple, it might have been last year, the year before, he was a free agent, and we talked about him. And
Yes.
I remember breaking down the play where the Bills are playing the Rams. He comes down and lights Cook up and causes the fumble.
He's the one, ironically, tying into some Bills ties. He's the one down the stretch for the Super Bowl run that the Rams put him and Weddle at safety that forced Taylor Rapp out of a starting spot and made him into the dime backer.
Very feisty guy, smaller end guy, but high volume tackler. Honorable. Those are my honorable mentions for safety. Do you have any for that besides before we go to the wide receiver room real quick?
I have Cam Curl, and I wrote in parentheses in my notes. Erik will probably have him top 3.
Stop it already.
No,
Stop
you liked Cameron Curl
I
last year. So
I posted about him
that's
too on
right,
social. So
yeah. But yeah, I thought I knew he'd be at least an honorable mention for you.
107 tackles last year. He led the league. 107 tackles.
And they did some cool 3 safety stuff with the Rams. Him and Kitchens, and then Quentin Lake. Lake was more of like the big nickel and type of deal, and what they did with the dime packages and how Shula.
He got paid too, yeah.
Yeah, he did. But yeah, Curl is one who I thought he did some things with Washington several years ago, and then his time with the Rams. He was my biggest honorable mention because I essentially, again, cheated and had like 2 tied for number 3 with Byard and Cook, and then I had Cam Curl after that as my top honorable mention. Also, just in case, I know I've seen Jaquan Brisker floated around from a lot of Bills fans. I just don't like the pairing of him and Bishop. But I like him as a player.
I like the player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like the player. I don't think the fit is great. Again, he played with Byard last year in Chicago. So you wouldn't want 2 Briskers, which is like you'd want a Byard and a Brisker. So that's kind of what I liked him as a player. But so
like a barbecue joint.
Oh, yeah, you want a Brisker and a Brisker. That's where we go.
I'm hungry. We're wrapping the show here. I'm hungry.
Yeah. All right, goodbye, everyone. We're gonna get some barbecue. So I like Brisker the player, not the fit. To your point, so he was kind of in there, and I know a lot of fans have been on social.
I love
him.
The shows man. He's very good. Yeah, he's one that I don't think pairing wise it works. But man, he's everywhere. He is literally everywhere and used everywhere. And with that, I do think because of his upside and his talent, I think he's probably going to get paid a little more than what I think the Bills would. For the wide receivers, I think it's a pretty easy answer, and I'd probably do this regardless of who they plan on bringing in at wide receiver in free agency or in the draft. Brandon Cooks, guys.
Yep.
Brandon Cooks.
Very fair.
He is a guy in that room that will obviously can rub off as far as being a pro. He can rub off in that. Obviously, he can still create separation. Now, does he have the multiple breaks in his routes anymore? No, not really. But I also think he can transition in a lot of ways to that vertical slot element, that speed element from the slot to open up things for others. Now he's got to work. He better, if he does come back to Buffalo, he better be throwing with Josh and catching with Josh in the offseason because there were some obviously drop issues with Josh last year, but he's a veteran deep threat that remains a high IQ vertical stretcher who can still exploit specific defensive looks. I think he'd be I'd assume on a lower end as far as AAV, but I think he would have tremendous value to the Bills wide receiver room.
Yeah, I would welcome him back with open arms. I thought he acclimated really well to Buffalo and the offense, and him being Allen's go-to guy down the stretch again speaks to the wide receiver room. But I also think it speaks to the professionalism of Cooks and him getting acclimated and being able to kind of do some things. And it
was noticeably different, right? When he was on the field running around and being targeted, it stood out. Again, I said it during the year when we did some breakdowns. When they started throwing to Cooks this year, it kind of brought me back to when Robert Foster on the back half of Josh's rookie year,
forever my wide
where
receiver one.
just separating, and Josh trusting that he was going to have that separation and lock that separation in. It kind of brought me back there, just not on that volume, not as much volume as Robert Foster did, but you could see the difference in that speed versus everyone else in that Bills offense.
My heart will forever love Robert Foster. But yeah, I would welcome Cooks back, and I not not for nothing. I not liked, but I definitely noted how sad he was with how they lost against Denver. He took it like hard, and he talked about what it meant for the team and the city. And I was like, oh, like cool. And yeah, again, he's not 4.3 40 Brandon Cooks like he used to be when he came into the league, but dude can still move. He's a quality ad for the room. I would absolutely welcome him back. If they could add to the top of the depth chart with multiple guys and then bring him back as well, I would love that for the wide receiver room. Absolutely. And yeah, wide receiver is obviously a spot that is going to be high on the priority list, I think, for a lot of Bills fans. And just based off what we've done here, I think it's safe to assume that you'll get a pretty in-depth wide receiver scouting episode for the draft from us. Until watch the Bills sign like Doubs and Alec Pierce, and we're like, all right, cool, never mind. I guess do something crazy, and then nothing else anywhere. But yeah, we'll have you folks covered here every single week going forward here in the Cover One film room. It looks like the YouTube comments were glitching. I don't know what's going on. I tried to send something in the chat. I got a weird error message from YouTube, but everything looks good on the back end. So for those of you who joined us live, apologies if you were trying to comment and you could not.
We can't see any comments except one. That's basically it. I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah, I saw one that came through from James, and I tried to answer James right after in the chat, but it wouldn't let me. So apologies if you watch this live on YouTube and you weren't able to comment. We'll figure out what the error was and fix that going forward. But we appreciate everyone who tuned in live. We appreciate everyone who's watching post live. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room. Tell your family, friends, and loved ones about the show, the brand, the channel, and whatever form or fashion your episode consumption comes in. We sincerely appreciate it, and we're thankful for it. If there's somebody that you like at safety, you like at wide receiver, you like at anything, position or a player we didn't cover in the previous episodes or this, get at us on Twitter. Erik runs the Cover One handle at Cover Ones. That's cover and the number one. You can also get at him at his individual at Erik J. Turner. Get at me on Twitter at pro__ant. You can message us in the Discord. You can put it in one of the threads. You can DM us, leave it in the YouTube comments, whatever you got. If there's something we missed out, or if there's something you want us to cover in the future, let us know and get at us in any one of those ways. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you very much to Joe DeRosa, as always, for being the man behind the scenes and helping us get prepared every week. Erik, anything else before we say goodbye?
No. Cool. Good episode. Great offseason so far, free agency. We'll see you next week back here in the film room.
We'll see you next week for our top 10 episode of free agent targets for the Buffalo Bills. And until then, we hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for the godfather and founder of Cover One, Mr. Erik Turner, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We will see you when we see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.